We just got the pretty exciting announcement of Lost Ark finally coming to the West. Last October, I think it was, Amazon Games actually got itself the publishing license for the game, and then they didn't talk about it at all anymore, which was a little bit concerning. But then today, there were some listings going up on the Amazon US store, and then during Summer Games Fest.
We're thrilled to announce the upcoming Western release of a spectacular 3D massively multiplayer online role-playing game. Welcome to the world of Lost Ark.
I was pretty excited. I went to the website. I could actually sign myself up for the alpha with my Amazon account. I was actually able to pre-order the founder pack on the store that I got sent to, so all of that seemed to work. And then I realized, oh shit, I know Amazon Games actually lists their games on Steam as well, so let me see if I can get it over there. That might be more convenient, because that's where I got New World as well, which is the other upcoming Amazon Games game, which is coming out the 31st of July, I think. 31st of August, actually. And, I go over there, and I see a thing that is very quite upsetting, mainly because I have just been dealing with another game that has this exact same issue, being Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis now. And that is that game is blocked in your region. And the first thing I think of is like, oh no, not this shit. But then I start rationalizing and I'm like, well, maybe it's just that they're slowly rolling out the store page, and, you know, sometimes that can take a little bit in different countries, so maybe that's the reason. And then I go onto Reddit, and I see other people talking about it, and I see them link up the FAQ of Lost Ark, and guess what? The Netherlands and Belgium are excluded from the game.
Upcoming Western release.
Which pretty much guarantees that it's because of the, so to say, loot box law, which, I mean, I kind of want to get into the fact that we in the Netherlands do not have a loot box law. We just have a law against gambling, and our gambling commission that we have in the Netherlands actually did a study into loot boxes, in which they found that 4 out of 10 loot boxes in 4 out of 10 games that they studied, they had things that would actually violate the regular gambling law. That's what they found. And some of those games, actually, I think most of those games actually changed their stuff. They did not mention the games that were the games in question, but not even like a day later, I think the Dutch news covered it, and the Dutch news like straight up name and shamed the games, I think, which were FIFA 2018. This study came out in 2018, so FIFA 18, Dota 2, Players Unknown Battlegrounds, and Rocket League. There we go. So those 4 games were the games that got name and shamed in our news. So we are thinking, we're not sure, it's not confirmed, but we're thinking those are the 4 games in question which were violating the law, which we can go down that list. Let's say that we look at Dota 2. They have changed the way stuff works now. But at the time, you could buy yourself a loot box, get yourself an item, and then list that item onto the marketplace, the Steam marketplace, which straight up gave you money that you could use on other stuff on Steam. Be it other video games, be it other things inside of Dota 2, be it a virtual reality headset. So, you know, you could obviously easily cash out. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, much the same. You have loot boxes, or you had loot boxes. You could buy them, you could buy keys for them, you open them, and then the loot that you get from it, you could sell on the Steam Marketplace. You could use the funds that you take from the Steam Marketplace and use it on other games, the same game, or cash it out, essentially, with real-life hardware, be it a Steam controller, be it a Steam headset, an HMD, a virtual reality headset. You know, you could easily cash out. Now, you might be wondering about FIFA 2018 or Rocket League, which are a little bit different because they do not integrate with something like a Steam marketplace, so it's not quite as easy to cash out. But FIFA 2018 in particular has a lot of websites because you can trade the reward with other players. There is an in-game marketplace, which you do use in-game coins for, but because you can trade it with other players, because of that, you can still cash out. Essentially, the Gambling Commission argues that because it's really easy for you to go onto one of the various websites, which are are very popular with FIFA, and you can just go on there and sell your coins or sell your players because your players are worth coins, and therefore cash out, you are gambling for essentially something that has real life money value straight up. And Rocket League has the same thing. You could at the time, they have changed their system fully. You could just straight up trade everything away, and you could get money from that for something else. And you also, that's something they pointed out as well, with most of these games, for especially Dota and PlayerUnknown's Battleground, and I think Rocket League had a couple of websites like that as well. You could trade your items to a bot, and that bot would then instantly convert your items into points on a website, and then with those points you could do gambling like blackjack, roulette, all those kind of things that we saw with like the whole CSGO gambling scandals that we had. Like those RNG games, those straight up gambling games, which even most of these publishers don't even like that is being done with their virtual goods, because it results into something like this, for example. That is one of those things that, for example, the study really observed and didn't like. And I mean, the study is very, very extremely clear about this, by the way. It straight up says loot boxes contravene the law if the in-game goods from the loot boxes are transferable. Loot boxes do not contravene the law if the in-game goods from the loot boxes are not transferable. We actually very recently saw this being applied to a game that I haven't played in ages, but that I loved a long time ago, which is MapleStory. I got an email from Nexon not too long ago telling me, hey, because you live in the Netherlands, from now on you can no longer trade items from the loot boxes. That's essentially it said. You can no longer trade items from the loot boxes, which I think is a very okay implementation. Like, do I think it's silly to a certain extent that games still very heavily rely on loot boxes? Sure, but at the very least you should offer an alternative to the players in that certain country. For all I care, they make it so that, we cannot open loot boxes. I do think we get into a weird area right there, because I think personally you should not design your game in such a way to where opening loot boxes provides something that you could not get outside of using those loot boxes. But I know that a lot of games are designed in such a way to where loot boxes do end up being some level of integral to the gameplay. Like, let's say that we look at FIFA, for example. You do get certain players that are near impossible to get if you weren't to open loot boxes. Now, do I think that's a nice way to design your game? Not at all. But I do understand why you wouldn't want to just completely take away the ability from people to open those loot boxes, because technically speaking, without being able to open those loot boxes, people couldn't be on the same level of play of other people. Once again, do I think games should be designed that way? Absolutely not. I think that's absolutely ridiculous, but you can see, especially if you look at mobile games, and especially if you look at, for example, FIFA, and also a bunch of other games, you can see that there's a certain baseline level that the high-end players will buy into, so that they stay equal. Like, essentially, they all pay a certain insane amount of money every month to the game, so that everyone has the same baseline. They could just agree with each other that nobody takes advantage of any of these things, but everyone does, so, like, the result is still 0, which is just... it's very stupid to think about. But obviously the better way to do it is to either design your game so that there's an alternative way to get those items so that you can actually properly play a true gameplay. Although I would say that probably would make it into such a way to where other players who aren't in the countries where loot boxes are, against the law, quote unquote, they would probably be looking at that and maybe think that this other country has an advantage because, they can just play for it, but I might have to gamble $100 for me to get that certain thing. So I can see how that would run into issues as well. The simple solution to it all would just to not have loot boxes and just design your game from the ground up to not take advantage of the vulnerable people that might also buy loot boxes. I think something that's very important to keep in mind is that for the general audience, and that's something the Dutch study found as well, there is no real evidence that it's specifically vulnerable people constantly buying lots and lots of loot boxes. Obviously, we do hear about the extremes. We do hear about the extremes of some people dumping all their life savings, or especially some kids who just don't even have the concept of money, taking the credit credit card from one of their parents and then spending money that isn't even their own onto these loot boxes and spending way too much because, once again, they don't have a concept of money. But those are the outliers. But they are the examples that you hear on a semi-regular basis. And I think because of that, there is a certain level of loot box panic. There's a certain level of loot box panic that is very present, and governments that need to look over this type of stuff. So they need to find some way to regulate it, in their opinion, so that those people that, you know, don't have the concept of money, or those couple of people that do have a very bad time controlling themselves, and, you know, they don't understand chance, because that's the whole reason why we have lotteries, because most people don't understand chance, that they cannot be taken advantage of. The other thing that makes all of this, specifically with Lost Ark, even more frustrating in my opinion, is that as far as I've seen, as far as the community has been talking about, there aren't loot boxes in the Russian or the Korean version of Lost Ark. Which makes you wonder, what? You know, have they added loot boxes for the European version? Is there something else in there that's so RNG dependent that somehow they have classified it as maybe breaking these gambling laws as well? Yeah, we don't quite know. Like, everything is tradable in Lost Ark, so that's a thing. And obviously, you know, implementing a system that then prevents people from a specific IP, from a specific country, so to say, from trading specific items is also, I can understand it takes development time, but maybe that's something you have to look into unless you want to exclude these entire markets. As a Dutch person right now, I am running into this very annoying situation more and more, and as somebody who's even if you're just a little bit tech savvy, or even if you're not even tech savvy but you know how to Google, you can get around this issue, but it involves you breaking some other laws, because, you know, if I were to buy something while using a VPN, I am technically sales tax avoiding. So if I buy the founder pack for Lost Ark with, let's say, a German IP address, which I'm not saying I'm doing, but let's say I do that, then technically speaking, because I'm then paying German sales tax, I am avoiding Dutch sales tax, but it's on a product that I wouldn't be able to buy in the Netherlands, but I'd still be avoiding sales tax. Yeah, it gets into like a little bit of an awkward situation, as you can see. So it's all just weird. I don't know. You know, talking about it like this and just thinking about all the things while I'm still very upset, because I was very excited for this announcement, and then instantly my excitement turned into anger and disappointment and just general upsetness. I guess it's clear that it's fine, you know. I can still play the game. I'm still gonna be playing the game, you know. I'm not saying I'm gonna use a VPN, but I'm just gonna be using a VPN. And things will be fine, but it's just so shitty. Like, the only cynical thing that I can say about this is, like, I hope that more countries actually implement some kind of loot box law, because at that point, a country like the Netherlands and a country like Belgium at the moment cannot just be completely excluded from a video game. And, you know, because just because you have this one shitty mechanic in your game, the entire game cannot release over here. Or at least you're afraid that our gambling commission would come after you. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a general shitty situation. It's a general not great fun situation, and I hope that we see some kind of solution in the near future. According to Amazon support, they are still looking at hopefully releasing in as many regions as possible. Just right now, they're not including the Netherlands and Belgium, but does that mean that they're exploring putting loot boxes into their game? Like, all these questions. We'll just have to see how things go, and then from there, hopefully, things will be better in the future. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed my little ramble about all the things loot boxes and all the things Lost Ark announcement or something. And hopefully I can put my mind to rest knowing that I blabbered on about this for about 20 minutes. Bye-bye.